There's little doubt the United States is one of the most controversial countries in the world. Since World War II, its military, political, and cultural leadership have dominated the globe and shaped international institutions. This level of influence has created resentment not only among America's enemies but also among some of its friends. Of course, governmental relations do not necessarily correspond to popular opinion within countries. People may also have a negative opinion of the United States government and foreign policy while liking American people and culture. So, with these complexities in mind, what countries dislike the United States the most? We're going to look at this question from two angles. First, based on Pew Research Center polling, we'll identify some areas that tend to create resentment against the United States in foreign countries. Then, going region by region, we'll take a deep dive into specific countries that dislike the United States the most due to conflicting foreign policy objectives. For the past 2 decades, the Pew Research Center has collected polling data from 23 countries worldwide to determine international opinions of the United States. Polling is difficult or impossible to accomplish in the closed societies that are the United States' main rivals. This means that Pew's data indicates mainly how American friends, like Canada, Spain, Japan, and Kenya, see us. However, this makes it all the more useful data to identify issues that are problematic enough to be felt both by American friends and enemies. So in today's video we're going to show you top 10 countries that dislikes the America most. But before starting the video, I want to request you, we put our best efforts to create our every single video, so please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 10, Egypt. Once aligned with the Soviet Union, Egypt signed a U.S.-brokered peace agreement with Israel in 1979 and became a major American recipient of military and development aid. Due to its strategic location, the U.S. has been keen to preserve Egypt's stability, even at the cost of supporting repressive leadership. Over 80% of the Egyptian people had an unfavorable view of the United States after its perceived interference in the removal of Hosni Mubarak and the election of the Muslim Brotherhood, a group accused of terrorism, to leadership. Concerns about human rights violations under current President Abdel Fattah have led the United States in 2023 to redirect some aid from Egypt to Taiwan. While Egypt and the United States cooperate at the governmental level, it is pretty clear that the Egyptian population holds a fairly dim view of the United States these days. Number 9, Venezuela. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela lies along South America's Caribbean coast. It is bordered by Brazil, Colombia, and Guyana. The country covers an area of around 916,000 square kilometers, excluding the Essequibo area, and has a population of around 33 million. Around 4 million people live in the capital, Caracas, and Spanish is the country's official language. In 1999, leftist politician Hugo Chavez became the president of Venezuela. Over a 14-year regime, his policies crashed the country's once prosperous economy, suppressed his political opposition, and led to the mass exodus of over 7.3 million Venezuelans just since 2014. His successor, Nicolas Maduro, took office after an election broadly considered rigged, triggering social unrest. Reportedly, U.S. President Donald Trump briefly considered the idea of invading Venezuela to remove him from power. So, both countries feel like they have plenty of reasons not to like one another very much these days. Number 8, Cuba. Cuba is an island country in the Caribbean consisting of the main island of Cuba, the Isla de la Juventud, and several archipelagos. Its nearest neighbors are the United States, Bahamas, Mexico, Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. Cuba is tropical and mostly flat with mountains in the southeast. Cuba gained its independence from Spain in 1898 with American assistance, but Cuba had no illusions that this was a generous act of altruism. The United States took the opportunity to seize Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam from Spain as spoils of war, as well as retaining control of Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as a naval base. A few years after a communist government under Fidel Castro took control in 1959, the United States and the Soviet Union very nearly went to war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba further provoked American ire by supporting leftist insurgency movements in Latin America and Africa. Today, Cuba remains a one-party communist state that strictly suppresses political opposition and therefore remains under a withering American trade embargo. Continued American control of Guantanamo Bay and its use as an offshore detention facility for prisoners from American anti-terrorism campaigns is a significant ongoing point of tension. Number 7. Syria. Located in the Middle East, Syria is approximately 1.5 times bigger than the state of Pennsylvania. Bordered on the east by the Mediterranean Sea, Syria also shares borders with the countries of Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, Israel, and Lebanon. More than half of Syria is covered by the Syrian desert, which stretches into several other countries in the Middle East. The current population of this country is around 21.7 million. With neighboring Israel aligned with the United States, Syria sought out the Soviet Union as its sponsor during the Cold War. This relationship has largely continued, with Russia still maintaining a naval base and military presence in the country. The United States has long criticized Syria for its poor human rights record, use of chemical weapons against its own people, and for allowing the movement of terrorists and Iranian material through its territory to support terrorist organizations in Lebanon. When a multi-faction civil war broke out in 2011, the Americans and Russians supported opposite sides, with further complications from Iranian, Turkish, and Israeli interventions. In this still unsettled situation, Syria sees the United States as its most implacable enemy. Number 6. Afghanistan. Afghanistan is located in Central Asia with Iran to the west and Pakistan to the east. Tall, forbidding mountains and dry deserts cover most of the landscape of Afghanistan. The jagged mountain peaks are treacherous and are snow-covered for most of the year. The devastating terrorist attacks in New York City and Washington, D.C. on September 11, 2001, traumatized the American people and left them demanding revenge. When an investigation identified Osama bin Laden as the mastermind, the United States began mobilizing for war against the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, which was sheltering him. 20 years later, American forces were abruptly withdrawn, leading to the near-immediate collapse of a pro-Western government and the Taliban's return to power. With the scars of war still fresh, Afghanistan considers the United States its primary foe. Number 5. Iran. Iran, formerly known as Persia, is situated at the crossroads of Central Asia, South Asia, and the Arab states of the Middle East. This strategic position and its access to the Persian Gulf in the south have made Iran an important country throughout its history. In 1979, Iran reversed course from being a staunch U.S. ally to an implacable enemy when religious clerics spearheaded the overthrow of the country's monarchy. Militants held the U.S. Embassy staff hostage for 444 days, guaranteeing that the American government and people would see Iran as a hostile power for years to come. The two countries have come close to war on numerous occasions, particularly in response to Iranian sponsorship of terrorism, harassment of international shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, and pursuit of nuclear technology. The U.S. maintains a sizable military presence in Qatar to deter Iranian aggression. If Iran reaches the point of testing a nuclear weapon, there is a real danger of armed conflict with the United States, Israel, and the Persian Gulf states that are aligned with the West. Number 4. North Korea. At the end of World War II, the Korean peninsula was divided into the Communist Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north and the Western Aligned Republic of Korea in the south. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or North Korea, remains one of the most repressive countries in the world. A 2014 United Nations Commission of Inquiry report found that the government committed systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violations that constitute crimes against humanity. Ruled by third-generation totalitarian leader Kim Jong-un, the government maintains fearful obedience by using arbitrary detention and imprisonment, torture, executions, enforced disappearances, and forced labor. It systematically denies basic liberties, including freedom of expression, association, assembly, and religion. It bans independent media, civil society organizations, and trade unions. The North Korean leadership made the disastrous decision to invade the South in 1950, provoking a devastating U.S.-led military response that largely destroyed the country but returned the situation to a stalemated status quo. The conflict remains unresolved to this day, but in the meantime, North Korea has built one of the most powerful military machines in the world, complete with nuclear weapons and ICBMs that may be able to reach the North American mainland. Needless to say, North Korea is no fan of the United States. Number 3. China. China, country of East Asia. It is the largest of all Asian countries. Occupying nearly the entire East Asian landmass, it covers approximately 1/14 of the land area of Earth, and it is almost as large as the whole of Europe. China is also one of the most populous countries in the world, rivaled only by India, which, according to United Nations estimates, surpassed it in population in 2023. Unlike other communist countries that have clung to untenable economic policies, China made the pragmatic decision to introduce market reforms to make it competitive while retaining strict one-party control of the government. Today, it seeks to parlay its wealth and technology into military, economic, and diplomatic influence. One way it does this is through massive infrastructure investments in developing countries and areas with strategic resources. China is using its growing military power to throw its weight around in the region. It has pressed claims to virtually the entire South China Sea against weaker neighbors and has made no secret of its intentions to regain control of the island of Taiwan, by force if necessary. As the only country strong enough to counter Chinese ambitions, the United States is certainly a country China doesn't like. Number 2. Belarus. Belarus, landlocked country of Eastern Europe. Until it became independent in 1991, Belarus, formerly known as Belorussia or White Russia, was the smallest of the 3 Slavic republics included in the Soviet Union. Covering an area of 207,600 square kilometers and with a population of 9.1 million, Belarus is the 13th largest country in the world. A close ally of Russia, Belarus has come under U.S. criticism for human rights violations, fraudulent elections, and allowing Russia to use its territory as a staging point for its aggression against Ukraine. Because Belarus borders NATO countries Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, the United States sees it as a strategic challenge for regional security. For its part, the Belarusian leadership knows it is surrounded by superior firepower and will be on the front lines of any future direct conflict between the United States and Russia. Thus, it sees the U.S. as its most dangerous enemy. Number 1. Russia. Russia, the largest country in the world, occupies 1/10 of all the land on Earth. It spans 11 time zones across 2 continents and has coasts on 3 oceans, the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic. Russia's history as a democracy is short. The country's first election, in 1917, was quickly reversed by the Bolsheviks, and it wasn't until the 1991 election of Boris Yeltsin that democracy took hold. Russia is a federation of 86 republics, provinces, territories, and districts, all controlled by the government in Moscow. The head of state is a president elected by the people. The economy is based on a vast supply of natural resources, including oil, coal, iron ore, gold, and aluminium. Russian leaders Gorbachev and Yeltsin pursued cooperation with the West, which led to international investment and cooperation on a range of issues. Vladimir Putin, however, has set his sights on restoring the former glory of the Soviet Union, particularly by engaging in an invasion of Ukraine that started in 2014 and accelerated dramatically in 2022. The United States and its allies have imposed crippling economic sanctions and provided funding, training, and equipment for the Ukrainian resistance. Due to their radically opposed agendas, Russia is one of the countries that most dislikes the United States. Both nations have shared interests in nuclear safety and security, non-proliferation, counter-terrorism, and space exploration. Due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, relations became very tense after the United States imposed sanctions against Russia. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.